Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, the Australia Institute podcast where we're talking about just what the hell is going on in the economy. I'm Elinor Johnston-Leake, the senior content producer here at the Australia Institute, and as always, and for the last time for this year, I'm talking to our chief economist, Greg Jericho. Hello, Greg.
Hi, Elinor. Thank you for making it back to our last episode after your jaunt to what music festival? Oh, no, it was just a concert, not a festival.
Yes.
The festival was this weekend.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up.
Yeah. No, I went and saw Justice last week. They were excellent, well worth missing the podcast to see.
But it was a riveting podcast.
Yeah. I'm sure it was without me.
It was nice of Lady Gaga to not schedule her concert on a day.
Yeah, otherwise I would have had to miss too.
Or Spilt Milk. Spilt Milk is the other one in Canberra that we're going to. So our last episode for the year. Thank you everyone for listening, but it is getting pretty close to Christmas. There might be some stuff out next week, but it's all sort of tying up loose ends by the government. And so we think everyone actually can have a bit of an early holiday.
Yep.
So we'll be back, probably just after Australia Day. That's always a good time when everything sort of starts heating up and just before Parliament gets back. But this is the last one, but by no means the least. Well, it better not be. Now
they're all equally good in our hearts.
What are we talking about today?
Well, today we've got a very exciting topic. We're going to be talking about your contribution to the latest book from Australia Institute Press called A Time for Bravery. What happens when Australia chooses courage? So this is essentially a collection of essays from a bunch of different people, some very cool people like Yanis Varoufakis, got one from Dr. Sophie Scomps, Greg Jericho.
Yes, I come third.
Barry Cassidy. Yeah, some really cool people. And among them is our one and only Greg Jericho. The book is usually available for just $35.99. But for our listeners, we've got a special offer. You can use the promo code POD5 at checkout to save $5. So this is available for a limited time only, so get in quick. If you want to order a copy, there'll be a link in the show notes. So,
I think it's australiainstitute.org.au/store is the place to go for all of our merch. And the merch is just the...
I wish we had merch.
We should have some dollars and cents merch. Could you imagine all the cool kids just roaming around wearing their dollars and cents T-shirts? That would be good with Elinor's face plastered on them.
Yeah,
that would be the
go.
I'm putting look, I'm filing that away. I'm going to bring that up at the next staff meeting and see if we can get some momentum going towards that. We need a T-shirt.
Yep. Anyway,
all right, let's get on to actually talking bravery. Yeah.
Yes. Well, in your contribution to the book, you wrote an essay about bravery in tax policy. And I was going to make a joke about, it's brave of you to talk about tax policy when, you've got all these other incredible writers. But, I won't make that joke.
Yeah, we've got firefighters, we've got doctors, and actual people who do have to worry about life and death stuff. And I'm like, what's really brave is tax policy. Yeah. Look, the whole premise of the book is essentially that in all manners of life, bravery is needed to, in effect, bring about a better society. These things we too often are pushed by media outlets and vested interest groups that actually know the best way is to keep things the same.
Yep.
Almost in a sense, be safe. Don't do anything brave because that will mean something bad will happen. And it's really often it's a case of, well, if we'd had that attitude, we wouldn't have a 5-day week. We wouldn't have sick leave, maternity leave. We wouldn't have, progressive taxation, Medicare, all these things. And my sort of contribution looking at tax is really sort of first trying to examine what ends up being seen as a brave policy when we're talking about tax or economics. And it's always something that is going to affect the very wealthiest.
99.5% of people with superannuation are unaffected.
Australians will see this change as modest and reasonable and fair.
After 2 years of saying there was no room to move, 6 changes have been endorsed by the Cabinet.
Jim Chalmers pointing a different way forward. His super policy superseded.
The policy has been changed today.
Dropping its controversial plan to tax unrealised gains and pledging to index the threshold at which the changes kick in against inflation.
This will make the superannuation system fairer from top to bottom.
You had a line that I really liked from the essay that said, whether taxation policy is brave is decided by the conservative media and powerful business groups.
Yeah. And, we had this great example in the past year with superannuation where the government was looking at changing the superannuation tax breaks essentially for funds that had more than 3 million in them, which was around 80,000 people. And you don't need to be great at maths to know that 80,000 is not very many of the entire Australian population. And even of people with superannuation, it was less than 0.5% or around 0.5%, like 0.5%.
Yeah.
And yet the way the media covered that, especially conservative media, the Financial Review, the Australian, and Sky News, but it's seeped into all other aspects of the media as well, was this sense that, this is very brave because you're going to hurt these people who are powerful, and as a result, it is brave. And it's like, we shouldn't even be talking about this as brave. We should be talking about this as common sense.
Yeah.
And yet when there's things that are done that will affect millions of people, whether it's through raising job seeker or not raising job seeker or public services, it's never considered brave to cut them. Or to not raise job seeker and keep people in poverty. That's not brave. That's just common sense. We should be doing that because we don't want a whole bunch of freeloaders or something like that. And yet, when you've got these people who have gotten more than 3 million in their super, are getting these massive tax breaks that are designed. The original intent is designed to help people save so they won't be on the age pension, and these people with 3 million in their super were never going to be on the age pension. A small change to their tax is pitched as being, I don't know, this could have massive ramifications. It might hurt everybody. And, and what we saw, unfortunately, was the government back down and not tax the unrealised capital gains aspect of it. And lo and behold, literally today, I was reading it just before we came in the Financial Review, they've got a report from the Parliamentary Budget Office that apparently was provided to the opposition. So the opposition are trying to get some costings on these changes that are showing that because they're not taxing the unrealised capital gains and just the realised ones, so only when you sell your assets, that these people with massive superannuation, what they're going to do is just not touch the superannuation basically until they die so they can pass it on to their kids essentially tax-free.
Yeah.
And it's like, that was the hot, and, this is being reported. One is the failure of the policy. See, they're not going to raise as much money as they thought they would. And it's like, well, yeah. And also it's reported as being this sense that not of, these guys are tax dodgers, but, no, this is just a smart approach to bad policy. And we're like, but you guys were the ones who were pushing this policy to be bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're going, it's a bad, and my essay is sort of looking at this thing of how whenever you're going after, whether it's gas companies, whether you're going after the wealthiest for a wealth tax or going after, anything to do with mining companies or a bank levy or things, it's always painted as, this is brave, when actually what it should be is just common sense and consider this is what a government should do. And that's why I say what we need is more of this brave policy, supposedly brave policy, so that in the end it becomes actually that's not brave, that's expected.
Yeah.
But if you're continually floating these things and as soon as there is any pressure, you're backing down, well, that keeps it stuck in this, this is brave, better not do this. Do we want to do this? instead of actually you should be doing this, and the pressure becomes, hang on, you did it we did all these things in the past, and instead what we're seeing, and this is not quite on tax, but things like the banning of social media for under 16s, I've seen people going, oh, you people criticize the government for not being bold or brave. This is bold and brave. I'm like, what? It's bold to do something that is supported by the entire News Corp apparatus. Pretty much has got bipartisan support. Where's the pushback coming from? Twitter and Facebook. No one, the two of the most evil companies sort of going around.
Yep.
And yet they go, oh, no, that's brave. And it's like, come on, guys.
Yep.
And as I say in the book, when a policy is brave when all the vested interests are in confederacy against it. And, it's that type of thing that I really want to sort of push for, rather than so much just talking about tax, but talking about what we call bravery when it comes to tax.
Yeah. You gave an example in your essay about the independent MP, Kate Chaney. So she's an independent member from Western Australia. And prior to the election this year, she took a position against the extension of Woodside's Northwest Shelf gas project in WA. And she faced a lot of backlash from the media. I think they were calling it politically risky to do so. And then she won her seat back in the 2025 election with an increased majority. Do you think then that, the media saying that these things are politically risky, politically dangerous, that there is actually a real political risk involved in that, do the public support these changes more than, say, the media might?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw that with all our polling on the superannuation changes. People were very much in favour of them. A good solid majority were in favour of them. Yeah, we saw it with the stage 3 tax changes that were always painted as, they're going to be, going backflipping on an election commitment. This, could be an opening for the opposition. And we were pointing to our polling saying, hang on, more than 2/3, almost sort of, even a vast majority of Liberal Party voters were in favour, and yet what we continually see is this sense of these vested interests trying to make it seem like the voters are against it when they're not. And Kate Chaney was a classic example where the West Australian media, which is basically the West Australian and Kerry Stokes kind of media, were just out in force against her, like really quite viciously. And it was all to do with this gas policy, to the point where even if she sort of clarified her position, they were trying to paint that as a backflip and, she's on the fence. It's like, no, she was consistent all the way. It's just they were trying to paint her as, trying to play both sides of the street. And she was always like, pretty clear that there shouldn't be an extension of the Northwest Shelf, which because that's in Western Australia, you'd think, that is a very brave position to take. But as I point out in the book, was it brave, or did she actually understand the electorate better than the media did?
So do you think that our governments as a whole at the moment are less brave than governments have been in the past when it comes to making these sort of big political changes?
Look, I think you have to go back a little bit, because I would say one of the impacts of John Howard,
yes.
referring to our continual, our ongoing series of how John Howard screwed Australia, was to make it seem like being brave is terrible.
Yeah.
This sense that the status quo is what you should be after. Be relaxed and comfortable. Don't do anything that's going to scare the horses. And we saw that, I think, with the Rudd-Gillard government. And, of course, the mining tax and all that, but actually with IR. And if you go back to 2007, they won the election really off a lot of campaigning by unions against work choices. And what they do, they came in, they kind of got work choices, but they really just tinkered with a few things, didn't do anything that anyone would call brave. And in fact, the union movement was very upset that basically, wait on, we did all this campaign, this is what we got. Whereas the government, I think, that was one area where I think the Albanese government in its first term was actually brave with the IR policies. It pushed through, got things like multiple employer bargaining, same job, same pay type of stuff. And yes, was great opposition, but they did it and the world hasn't fallen. But it's kind of the exception rather than the rule now. And if you go back to Hawke and Keating, there's so much a rewriting of history where there's a pretense that it was all bipartisan back then. It wasn't when they introduced capital gains tax, when that was fiercely fought over by the Liberal Party for a couple of elections, at least, even after it's come in. Medicare was not bipartisan. The fringe benefit tax was not bipartisan. That was going to kill the restaurant industry. The classic, though, I think for a Labor government, though, obviously is Gough Whitlam, who was extraordinarily brave. And this isn't from the book, but for the 50th anniversary of the dismissal, I wrote a column for The Point, where I just sort of listed off a few of the things and pointing out that Gough Whitlam was not so much looking at the society and looking at Australia and asking, why are things this way, but rather actually why isn't it better? Why couldn't it be better? And so he was, basically saying, why not have a racial discrimination act that puts the final stake through the heart of the White Australia policy? Why not have no-fault divorce? Why not end conscription? Why not recognise China? Why not ban sporting teams from apartheid South Africa? Why not abolish the death penalty? Why not introduce free healthcare? Why not ratify the World Heritage Convention? Why not have equal pay for women and welfare assistance for single mothers and maternity leave for Commonwealth employees? Why not have free tertiary education? Why not have a law reform commission, a national gallery, a national council for the arts? Why not recognise Indigenous land rights? Why not lower the voting age to 18? Why not ditch an imperial honours? Why not have a national anthem? All of these things. And, I could keep going on with Gough Whitlam. And you go back and you look at the debates, and there was a lot of bravery required because these were not bipartisan. These were...
Yeah, I assume there would still be, pushback from the media.
I mean, you think even
interests,
things like the Racial Discrimination Act, where you think, what? We're making racism in the workplace, basically illegal. You can't sort of, and you read the parliamentary debates, and the Liberal Party is all, we're very much against racism, but, and you even had some Liberal senators saying Australia's not racist. There's no racism in Australia. I don't know why we're worried about this. And by the way, Charlie Perkins isn't an Aboriginal. He's a white man. Because, and the same with things like maternity leave. All of these things require bravery. But as we always say about things that the government does, it's all about choices. What are you choosing to do? And the reality is that governments that choose to do nothing, especially progressive Labor Party governments that choose to do little, are very quickly forgotten. All of their tinkering is quickly undone by a Liberal Party who, and this was the thing about John Howard, he made it seem like nothing was being changing, but what he was doing was making sure what was in place was embedded deeply to the point where you've now got, he changed the capital gains tax, the way it's done, introduced the 50% discount. That wasn't presented as being brave. That was presented, this seems like a good policy that will help encourage investment, blah, blah, blah. Great for rich people. Not brave at all. And yet now we're at a point where a Labor government almost thinks, should we if we attack that would seem to be terrible. But the thing is, once you do these things, it's amazing how quickly they can be seen to be common sense. For example, we go back to Keating introducing fringe benefit taxes, whereas you used to be able to take people out to long lunches. That was all, you used to go out, long lunch, you just claim that as a business expense, all good, and in effect it was an increase in your salary because you're getting all these free lunches. He decided actually that should be taxed. And everyone's, you can't do that. And he's like, well, I'm going to. And now to get rid of it would just be seen to be idiocy. So, be brave. It's probably not as brave as you think it is. The media aren't as powerful as you think they are.
The voters are more on your side.
Yeah. The voters, Paul Keating, as he famously said, you change the government, you change the country. Well, actually, a thing with that is when they change the government, they want the country to be changed. You don't vote for a different party, certainly not for a Labor Party, to just keep doing the same things. And that's kind of the crux of the entire book. Essay is sort of saying, hey, be a bit brave about these things. You know, the voters have given you a huge majority. Be brave. If you actually think the country would be better if you pursued these policies, then do it. Not, oh, I'm a bit worried that I might get some pushback. If you think it's better, go for it. Because if you don't, voters are like, well, you're not really
What's
legit,
the point in voting for you? That's not what we elected.
I mean, we've always seen this with climate change policy where governments will say, oh, the climate change policy is an existential threat. It's a major thing, which it is. And then their policies are weak source stuff. And it's like, well, hang on. If you're saying it's an existential threat, if you're saying it's terrible, shouldn't the policy be big?
Yeah.
And actually saying, whoa, this is a thing.
And not considered to be brave.
I mean, we did, during the pandemic, we knew this is a big thing. So the policy responses were big. And everyone's like, yeah, this is a big thing. Do something big in response. Not, this is a huge thing and, we're going to bring in offsets, So be brave on all things, even tax, and make Australia better.
Well said, Greg. If any listeners want to read more about brave tax policy or other brave things that Australians can do, go buy the book. Link in the show notes.
We didn't consider the case for a rate cut at all. We didn't explicitly consider the case for a rate rise at this meeting. I don't think there are interest rate cuts in the horizon for the foreseeable future. The question is it just an extended hold from here, or is it possibility of a rate rise? I couldn't put a probability on those, but I think they're the two things that the board will be looking closely at coming into the new year.
Because it's our last episode for the year, we will only be able to talk about the RBA just one last time for the year, but we'll get in one more opportunity for you to talk smack about the RBA. On Tuesday this week, the RBA kept interest rates on hold at 3.6%, which, I think everyone was kind of expecting. But you were writing in your column for The Guardian this week that some people were reading a bit more into the statement and getting a bit worked up about things. Can you tell us a bit more about what people were worried about?
Yeah, the statement itself was pretty anodyne. In fact, they actually cut out a whole heap from their previous statement, which they don't generally do. It was a really stripped back thing. And I kind of read it and go, oh, that's basically a bit of nothing. Yeah, there's a few changes in words. But it was Michelle Bullock, the governor of the Reserve Bank, her press conference later in the afternoon on Tuesday that really got everyone sort of all their jimmies rustled pretty much. Because she certainly was not sitting on the fence. She pretty much came out and said, that's it for interest rate cuts. Thanks for coming.
Yep.
And said, really, the decision next year is going to be, do we keep rates on hold or do we raise them?
And those are the only two options that we're considering.
Yeah, that was it. And
Great.
And so not surprisingly, the market reacted by, we're going to all speculate that interest rate rises are going to start going up and going up quickly. So the market is now pricing in 2 interest rate rises by the end of next year, up to 4.1%.
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't mean the market's going to be right, because back in October, less than 2 months ago, they were pricing in 2 interest rate cuts at the end of next year. In fact, by May next year. So these things can swing around pretty wildly, but what I got the sense from, and I certainly didn't get the sense that, we're definitely going to be raising interest rates. But listeners will know in the past we've been talking about unemployment rising. And I've been advocating, hey, maybe think about an interest rate cut because unemployment is rising and that's not a good thing, especially when wages growth is slowing at the same time. What I take from what Michelle Bullock was saying is, if unemployment does rise, and we'll be finding out in a little bit for the most recent figures, they won't view that as a reason to cut. They'll just view that as a reason not to raise interest rates. And so they'll use that as let's just keep them steady because unemployment is rising, so we'll keep rates steady. But if inflation stays steady or goes up a little bit, they'll view that as a reason to increase. So my sort of sense is they've just taken off that excuse of why we might think about cutting rates and just say, oh, well, if bad things happen, that's just a reason to keep rates steady rather than cut.
Yeah, unemployment isn't as much of a concern as inflation.
Yeah, well, it's always the case. And she goes on about the dual mandate. She said that in a press conference that, the dual mandate is very important. We're just as concerned. But it really is a dual mandate with a lot of bias towards the inflation side rather than the unemployment side, because the Reserve Bank thinks that full employment is only possible when inflation is steady below 3%. And that's what colors everything. So you might think that, full employment is if we can get as few people unemployed as possible, or as the government has sort of said, you can get a job if you want a job within, let's say a month. No, the Reserve Bank doesn't think it that way. They think if inflation isn't rising, then that's probably where unemployment is full.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be too concerned about unemployment going above 4.5%. They'll say, oh, look, that's still low historically, which, it is. But, there's no real effort to get it any lower and no concern about it sort of going up. So,
unfortunately, a bit of a
no real change from what we've been talking about on that score all year, other than just the fact they've taken those interest rate cuts off the table, which is a bit weird. It's rare for a governor to actually say we're not going to be doing something, and it's kind of the opposite to what Philip Lowe said during the pandemic when he said, there won't be any interest rate rises for X number of years. Here's the governor saying, there won't be any interest rate cuts next year. Now, that's a hell of a lot safer thing to predict, because if she does have an interest rate cut, no one's going to come out and go, I'm paying less on my home loan.
Yeah, I was really waiting on the interest rate rise.
How dare you have given me an interest rate cut? So it's a safe prediction, that score. But I'm not sure why she is doing it that way. But I think it's unfortunate that this Reserve Bank has always looked for an excuse not to cut, and now they're not even bothering. They're just saying, no, we're not going to do it.
We don't need an excuse.
Don't do it. So the interesting thing, though, is what will they do next year? The first meeting will be on the 3rd of February, which coincidentally is the first parliamentary sitting day of next year. So if shock comes to shock and they raise interest rates on 3rd of February, that is going to colour everything for the next parliamentary year. And so that's going to be very interesting, and we will be back.
Yeah. Well,
we will be back for that.
But until then,
won't
think about the RBA.
Go off, have Christmas. Don't think about the Reserve Bank. At least you don't have to worry about your mortgage going up, because it is staying steady at the moment.
Yep.
And just have a safe and fun and relaxing break. Are you going anywhere?
No, I'm staying in Canberra.
Neither am I. I'm not going. I mean, I went off to Europe for a fairly long jaunt, so all my holidays gone. So, but I'll be,
pottering around,
watching the cricket.
Yep. I won't be doing that.
You'll just be going to music festivals all over the place, probably.
Yep.
But we'll have to leave it there, Elinor, I think. So thank you, everyone, for listening this year. We really love all the feedback, all the comments, and just all the listens that we see. We really do appreciate your listening. If you do wish to read more about interest rates and what the Reserve Bank was saying, my column, as always, is on the Guardian Australian site. If you want to read any more about everything that is going on in Australia, whether it's taxes, whether it's the environment, whether it's judicial things, democracy, head over to thepoint.com.au. It's our new site that just has stacks of analysis, some sort of articles, as well as a bit of breaking news. It's where Amy Ramakis's live blog is located, it is just a great read. It also has quizzes, which are of varying difficulty, and generally if I'm involved with them, they become far too difficult.
Yeah,
and
if there's
everyone
any
gets
sports
9.
questions, I don't. Yeah.
We're also going to have some great summer reading as well, some bit more light, but really good summer reading as well. So head over to thepoint.com.au, and also remember, check out australiainstitute.org.au/store, where you can pick up your copy of, what is the name of the title?
A Time for Bravery. Yep.
And
use promo code POD5
POD5,
for $5 off.
POD5 to get $5 off. It is a great read, and if you're really into policies, I know all of our listeners are, you'll find it, I think, quite invigorating and hopefully inspiring. But that's it for us for this year. Everyone have a great and very much please a safe holiday. We will see you all next year. Elinor, thank you for what wonderful hosting. Even when I wasn't here, keeping the ship afloat while Matt Grudenoff, and thanks, Matt, for stepping in as well. But Elinor, thank you for all your great work. Listeners won't know, Elinor actually does a heck of a lot of research for these things, and actually has to read all of my columns, which is just a real punish.
Yeah.
Thanks, Elinor.
Yep. Thanks also to our producer, Angus,
Angus,
for listening to our voices
and editing
out all of our mistakes.
My many flubs.
Yep. And inserting air horn noises when I request them.
Yep. The deleted scenes will be available to subscribers.
No, they can never be aired.
They are in a vault at the bottom of the ocean.
Yep.
Everyone, have a great Christmas and New Year's, and we'll see you back after Australia Day.
See ya.